Mitra. Welcome to my class. So today I am going to discuss about chapter from class 9, that is motion. So this is a very important chapter because this chapter actually decides and detects a lot of basic things about physics. So let's start the class. So before starting the class, there are few things that we might need to know for this particular chapter in the motion. Right? First few terms that is the most important for motion. Number one, distance. Number two, displacement. Number three, speed. Number four, velocity. Now we can define velocity, we can actually distribute velocity into particular case, that is uniform velocity and non-uniform velocity. Now there comes acceleration. So these are the 5 basic topics we need to focus on in this particular chapter, motion. So started off with distance. Now what is distance? People might need to ask what is distance and what's the basic difference between distance and displacement. These are the basic important questions that students need to know about this. Now distance is nothing but the mathematical distance. Distance is nothing but actually the mathematical measurement between 2 points, right? The length. If a body starts from point A and reaches point B, then this will be its distance. Consider this is x kilometer. So the body travels x kilometer, started off from A point and reaches B point. This is distance. Now again there is one question that is more important. So what's the basic difference between distance and displacement? Now moving on to displacement. Displacement is something else. It's a bit different thing from distance. Displacement is the distance between initial and the final point of a body while it is traveling. Consider it like this. A point started off from point A and it travels this path and reaches here, that is point B. So what will be displacement? Displacement will be this particular distance will be called displacement. So this is the basic difference. Now there is another difference between distance and displacement, that is distance is a scalar quantity. Now what is scalar quantity? Scalar quantity means a quantity must have a particular magnitude, that means it has a value, but it does not have a particular direction. That would be called a scalar quantity, that is distance. On the other hand, if you ask what is vector quantity? Vector quantity consists of two things. First, the particular magnitude, and the second one is it has a particular direction. Now displacement has a particular direction but distance does not have it. That's the main difference. Now another question is students used to get confused between distance and displacement. One basic example will clear you out what's the basic difference. Now if a body started from this point, that is A, and ended up here, started up from point A and it ends up in the point A again. Now what will be its distance and displacement? Now consider this. These do have a particular length. These sides do have a particular length. The addition of this length or addition of this path will give you the distance. But as I told you earlier, displacement is what? Displacement is the distance between the final and the initial point of a body which travels a certain path. Now if you try to look at this diagram, it started off from A and ends it here. So there is no certain difference between initial and the final point. So initial and the final point coincides on a particular point, that is its displacement will be 0. Now there is another important question that is very crucial for students, that is a particular body do have a displacement of 0 but it does not have a distance 0 while it's traveling. I am saying that while a body is in motion, then that body can have displacement 0 but its distance cannot be 0. It's perfectly clear from this diagram. If you started off from a point and ends up on that point, so there is no certain difference between initial and the final point, so your displacement will be 0. But on the other hand, that body travels a certain path, and that for that reason it does have a distance. That's the basic difference between distance and displacement. Now we move to the next part, that is speed. Now what is speed? Speed is nothing but distance at a certain rate of time. Now distance is a scalar quantity and time is also scalar quantity. You cannot say that time is a vector, though time is a perfectly oriented directional. You can say that, though there is a very controversy and a high logical physics there, so consider it that this is a scalar and this speed term is also a scalar quantity. So that means speed do have a value but it does not have a direction. This is speed. Now you might ask, what's the basic difference between speed and velocity? Now once again, the basic difference between speed and velocity is, first speed is a scalar quantity and velocity is a vector quantity. Now velocity equals to displacement per time. That is, while a body is traveling, it does have a displacement, and when it is traveling at a certain rate of time, that would give you velocity. Now the second thing we'd ask, what is velocity? Velocity is nothing but displacement with respect to time. So your velocity can be 0 because your displacement can be 0. It can be 0, so velocity can also be 0 as well. That's the most important part of it. And another thing is the most important thing, that is people used to ask uniform and non-uniform velocity. Now what is uniform velocity? Uniform velocity is a velocity that means a body will travel a certain displacement at a certain rate of time. That means when a particular body is traveling 10 kilometers per hour speed, that's 10 kilometer per hour velocity. Now consider that this body travels 10 kilometer in the first hour. Now consider it travels 10 kilometer in the second hour as well. Now this thing is very important. You can see that in each and every hour it travels 10 kilometer. That means it consistent with the time. That means at a particular rate of time it travels a certain distance. That is called uniform velocity. That means there is no certain change in velocity for a particular rate of time. So if someone asks you that a body is traveling with 4 km per hour uniform velocity, that means it is consistently traveling 40 kilometers an hour velocity. That is, it is consistently traveling 40 kilometers in each and every hour. That is called uniform velocity. Now another thing is its complete opposite, that is non-uniform velocity. Now non-uniform velocity is complete different, that is in each time interval it will travel a different segment of distance. This will give you non-uniform velocity. Now consider a body travel 10 km in the first hour, and again then 15 km in the second hour, and then 9 km in third hour. You can see that in each and every time interval the distance is quite different, and because of that difference we will call it non-uniform velocity. And for the uniform velocity, you can see that, as I told you earlier, that in the uniform velocity in each and every time interval the distance will remain the same. That is your non-uniform velocity. Now there is some units, and I will talk about the units and everything else. Now moving on to acceleration. Acceleration is rate of change of velocity with respect to time is called acceleration. Rate of change of velocity with respect to time. Now how can you understand that what is acceleration? Now acceleration is that if a body traveling 10 km in first hour, okay, and then it travels 20 km in the second hour. For the first hour it travels 20, and then second in the 20 kilometers. Now what will be its acceleration? Its acceleration will be rate of change of velocity. It was traveling in 10 kilometers an hour speed, then speeded up to reach 20 kilometers an hour speed. So then what we will have, we will rate of change of velocity, that is 20 minus 10 with respect to time. So this will give you the acceleration, the particular time interval and the change in speed. Now there are certain things that uniform acceleration, non-uniform acceleration. So we will discuss it later. So that's it for today for the initial part of motion chapter. These are the things that we need to focus on and we need to excel a lot. That's it for today's class. I hope you guys are impressed with this video, and we will look forward to it. Thank you.